Don't let the TSA ruin your trip. How good people have become $15,000 case studies. Welcome to the Second Code Defense Podcast, where we talk about all things self-defense. I'm your host, Sean Maloney, a defense attorney and co-founder of Second Code Defense. Second Code Defense was created to defend against both criminal and civil threats that may arise simply as a result of exercising your right to self-defense. If you carry it legally and you fly, this episode could save you money in the 5 figures. One bad instruction, one wrong line at the airport, one forgotten round in a pocket. That's all it takes to turn a good day into a federal case. I've spent over 30 years in firearms law and Second Amendment advocacy. I've defended people who've made mistakes, and I've made a few myself. Today, we're talking about how to properly transport a firearm on a commercial airplane. We'll start with what you should do at home, then move to the real danger zone, the TSA security checkpoint, because that's where good people become case studies. Check your firearm the right way. Do this at home first. This is what you want to do before you even leave the house for the airport. Here's the correct process, and this is what I do. Lock your unloaded firearm in a hard-sided case. Hard-sided case. Now, note that it's not a Pelican case. It's probably $10 or $15. You don't need a $300 case. You need a sturdy, hard-sided case that can't be pried open. And trust me, the ticket agents will try to pry it open, and if they can get it open any way whatsoever, they're not going to let the firearm on with you. Place the locked firearm case inside a locked suitcase. Make sure you have a lock that goes in and keeps it secure. It can be any type of lock. You can have locks built into the case, but make sure that you have a lock. Place the locked firearm case inside a locked suitcase. So you're going to have 2 things. You're going to have a locked firearm case inside your locked suitcase. Now, you retain exclusive control of the key of the combination under federal law. You're supposed to be the only person with the key of the combination. If TSA wants you to open the case and they want to get inside, then they're going to come in and get you to do that. Between you and me, a lot of people that I know fly with TSA locks and nobody turns them away. In fact, some airline personnel, I've had them approach me to tell me that I have to have a TSA lock. Well, that's not true under federal law. If you're told that you must have a TSA lock and you don't have one with you, legally you're not required to have that. Don't argue. Politely ask for a supervisor. Federal law beats bad advice every time, and we'll learn that in a few moments. It's your responsibility to know the law, so make sure that you do, and you're not afraid to tell the ticket agent when they're not citing the law correctly. Now, if space allows, lock the slide or bolt of your firearm open inside the hard-sided case. So the TSA can readily see the chamber through the X-ray machine that it's empty. Here I have a Glock 43X. Notice I have the slide locked open. That way, when the TSA runs it through their X-ray machine, they can readily tell that there's not a round in the chamber with the slide open. And remember, loaded and unloaded. Unloaded means an empty chamber with no loaded magazines inserted. Under federal law, and the TSA is going to look at it, if you have a loaded magazine in the gun, even though there's not one in the chamber, it's still considered loaded. Now, there's an exception I want to point out, and I point the exception out because I've been harassed by this exception for years. The American Airlines exception. American Airlines is not allowed ammunition stored in magazines, even though federal law and the TSA say you can do that. Flying with American Airlines, the ammo must be in a factory box or containers designed to carry ammunition. For example, here's a factory box. American often requires a firearm case to be opened at the counter for visual inspection. Now, these are older airline procedures that American Airlines continues to follow, even though the TSA has long since revised its guidance and has eliminated that. And they probably eliminated it because 9 times out of 10, the American Airlines ticket agent is required to make sure your firearm is unloaded, and they have to visually inspect that. So oftentimes, I'm getting muzzled by my own firearm, by my own handgun, by my own rifle while they're trying to do that. And I suspect that's why the TSA revised the rules and didn't require that to do that. But American Airlines still does. So they often require that the firearm case be opened at the counter for visual inspection when nobody else does. So you want to make sure you double check airline specific rules And of course, there are weight limits for transporting ammunition because they can be stricter than TSA rules, like American Airlines is. At the airport, declare the right way. Declare your firearm at the ticket counter, never at a kiosk, never at a TSA agent, and never at the gate especially. In fact, I've literally been yelled at by ticket agents for not using the kiosk until they realize I'm checking the firearm and can't self-check. In fact, if you try to check and get your boarding pass online and you tell them that you have a special item, a firearm, it won't let you check it at the kiosk. You have to go to the airport and to the ticket agent. So here's the correct process. Walk up to the counter where the ticket agent is standing, place your bag on the scale, state that you are declaring a firearm. They're going to ask you, is it unloaded? Well, it better be after what we just went over. And you answer yes. You sign and date the declaration card. I have a few examples for you. I have a Delta card signed declaring that it's unloaded. American Airlines is red and it says return to BSO, which is the office by the luggage collection area, so you can collect your bag there. And then interestingly, Frontier Firearms has their unloaded card, but on the back, they have you check that you're responsible with applying with any applicable laws, and then that you check that it's domestic only, no international flights. You have to check that the firearms are unloaded and in a locked, hard-sided case, and that you're the only person with the key or the combination. And again, that's interesting because I've been approached several times over the years, told by bag agents, by the gate people, when I'm checking my firearm in that I have to have a TSA lock, but you do not. So then most airlines have you place the card in your bag on top of the lock case. So again, your lock case goes in the suitcase, and they're going to ask you to place the card on top of it, zip and lock your suitcase up for transportation. If your bag goes any place other than behind the counter with the ticket agent on the conveyor belt, you're in a danger zone already. So make sure that you know the law and you stop and you think. Now, if we make it beyond the TSA checkpoint, I always like to point out it's not a fix-it station. If you find out you made a mistake there, it's too late. The TSA checkpoint is not where mistakes get corrected. Trust me. It's where mistakes get documented, fined, and they never forget. And I have examples for that. One of my clients did everything right, for example, and this was recent. This was 2 weeks ago. She properly declared her firearm until a brand new ticket agent, actually his first day on the job, told her to take her luggage with the firearm and check at the gate because it was too late for them to check the luggage right now and get it on the plane. So the advice of the agent and the direction was take your suitcase through TSA and check it at the gate. Well, you can imagine what happened. In a police investigation that occurred after she tried to put her suitcase through the conveyor belt and x-ray machine confirmed that the agent gave her that advice. Guess what, folks? It didn't matter. She received a $15,000 civil fine and became my client after she received a letter in the mail. And I'll let you know later on in another podcast what happened. I've done several of those. Generally, I can get a break and get some of them dismissed, but it just all depends where you're at and what kind of mood people are in. So never take a firearm anywhere near a TSA screening, even if an airline police tells you to. Federal law beats bad advice every time. And remember, it's your responsibility to know the law. And it's not that difficult. And trust me, once you do know the law, you'll realize just how much some airline personnel don't. Now, I have a warning that I threw in here just recently before I was preparing for this podcast. It hit me with a harsh reminder because I represented a person probably almost 10 years ago that this happened to. Layover warning. Do not take possession in a prohibited state. So if your flight's delayed on the layover in a state where you cannot lawfully possess a firearm, say New York State, for example, that's the most common. Don't take possession of your bag and try to recheck it in at that airport. If they make you deboard or they're switching planes and they tell you to pick up your luggage, recheck it, you can't do that. You'll be arrested and you'll go to jail, I promise you. New York State is notorious for doing that. No guns allowed in the state. You're violating that when you try to check that through, and you'll end up in jail like my client did some years ago. So what do you do instead? You tell the airline, you go up to an agent when they say, go ahead and collect your luggage on the conveyor belt. Tell the airline you're not touching the bag. Tell them that there's a firearm that you legally checked in, and they should know that because it's on the tag, on the baggage tag. Arrange for the airline to store your bag and then load it on the airplane without you touching it the next day or the next flight that you're supposed to be on. No other choice. I don't care if they tell you to take it, don't touch it. If needed, contact an attorney in the area or contact me at any time, and I'll get you in touch with somebody that can take care of you. But trust me, you don't want to try to fix it yourself in a hostile jurisdiction because they don't care. And there's been a lot of people, a lot of cases, and including military veterans coming home on leave who have been captured under New York state law. The empty bag protocol, why I created it. I created the empty bag protocol because I'm human. We all are. I have a few examples. One unknown traveler left 2 unloaded Glock magazines in his everyday backpack. He normally carried concealed, and one day at the range, or somehow 2 magazines, empty by the way, were in the bottom of his backpack that he didn't notice. Well, the TSA found them. The mags were in the trash. The paperwork was started. 3 years later, applied for his known traveler ID, was denied. Another unknown traveler who taught basic pistol class dumped ammo in the jacket sleeve pocket and forgot about it. He went out to his car to retrieve that firearm as an example for class, dumped the 5 rounds of the 38 special in his hand, put it in his tactical jacket pocket. Weeks later, at the airport, busted. Ammo thrown in a garbage can, paperwork started. Years later, known traveler denied. Can't get the known traveler ID. Both unknown traveler folks were me. That's why I tell you to follow this protocol. I built it for me first, and now I'm sharing it with you. Trust me, it works. The empty bag protocol. Do this every time. Before every flight, empty your bag completely. Unzip the pockets, dump them out, turn it over upside down, run your fingers along the seams, check your jacket, your range bag, your back pockets. Check your jacket, folks. Remember that sleeve? Here it is. This is the jacket I was wearing. Do a final pocket check before leaving the house. Make sure that you have nothing, no magazines, no ammunition, and especially not a little 43X at the bottom of that backpack. Now, I want to give this warning. It is something critical. If you mistakenly bring an unloaded firearm to TSA, that's bad enough, right? And you even have one loose round in a bag in your pocket. All of us who shoot and carry regularly, we always end up with a round somewhere. Well, that single mistake turns that unloaded firearm under federal law. It can be treated as a loaded firearm, and that increases your fine. And you'll be paying something over $17,000 if they have their way, just for mistakenly, with no intention, no mens rea, bringing an unloaded firearm and then finding a loose piece of ammunition somewhere on your person or in your belongings. The bottom line, do lock your unloaded firearm in a haversack case. Do place locked firearm cases inside your lock suitcase. Retain exclusive control of the keys and combinations that are yours and yours alone. Lock slides or bolts open if space allows. That way the TSA can take a look at things and make sure it's unloaded just from an x-ray. It saves you time. Store loaded magazines only inside the locked gun container. Store loaded magazines in a locked firearm container only if you're not flying on American Airlines. Remember, I warned you about American Airlines. They do not accept ammunition in a loaded magazine. Use proper ammunition containers. Follow airline-specific rules, especially American Airlines. Every airline website has their specific rules. They'll have rules for weight of the ammunition you're carrying, of course, for the total weight of the suitcase itself, and how they want you to declare and take care of checking your firearms and your baggage. Declare the firearms at the ticket counter. Follow my empty bag protocol every single time before you leave the house. And if you really want to make sure, when you're parked, pop the trunk and do it all over again back there. Do not, under any circumstances, carry firearms and ammunition to checkpoints. Most of the time when this happens, and it happens over 6,000 times a year, firearms have been seized, most of them loaded at the TSA checkpoint going through the x-ray. So it's something that people don't think about. Firearms are an everyday part of their life, and they just never think about that. And I always tell people that some of the most worrisome times I've had is when I'm in the TSA check line. All of a sudden, I reach down on my side, on my right side where I usually carry, to make sure I don't have my firearm, because I always have my firearm. Do not carry firearms or ammunition to checkpoints. Do not carry loose rounds in pockets or bags. Do not assume an airline employee knows the federal law. Do not assume unloaded means legally unloaded. Look at federal law. You cannot have a loaded magazine inserted into the firearm, even though there's not a round in the chamber. That is considered a loaded firearm under federal law. Do not skip your final pocket check. And remember, preparation beats penalties. Process beats pain. Empty your bag every time. Now, as an attorney, I have to include this disclaimer. I'm a licensed attorney, but this podcast and any accompanying material do not constitute legal advice and do not create an attorney-client relationship or privilege. This content is provided for general information purposes only. If you need legal advice regarding firearms laws, TSA regulations, airline policies, concealed carry laws, or anything else, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe to the Second Call Defense podcast to learn more about self-defense. Being a Second Call Defense member means you get immediate upfront defense legal protection with nothing out of pocket, nothing to repay ever. Learn more about Second Call Defense at secondcalldefense.org.